In fact, Jesus said it this way. He said, all the law and the commandments are summed up in these two. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And love your neighbor as you love yourself. And one of the things we do very poorly in the church is, number one, teach, and number two, operate in loving ourselves. We focus in when we hear that passage, I've got to love the Lord my God with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength. And I've got to love my neighbor as myself. And yet, really, the passage is saying, love your neighbor because you love yourself. And I found this truth, that if I love myself and I accept myself, then nobody really can come into my presence without being loved and accepted. There's just a default, now we move through the relationship, you may have to, there's times when people are takers or they're controllers, and you have to, there's obviously parameters where you can say, you know what, we just can't work together. I would love to, but you got issues. And until you want to deal with them, and that's understanding. It says warn a divisive person, somebody who's causing division once, and warn them a second time, and after that have nothing to do with them. So you got to be discerning, because partnering with that divisive person may affect all of these other relationships. So I'm going to have to part ways with you to help keep these relationships healthy. And so it comes back to that idea of, will it help or hurt relationship? And how do I look at this? How do I come at it? And if I'm not healthy within myself, if I'm not loving myself, if I'm not careful to keep my heart clean and keep my heart pure and operate in what God's called me to do, then I'll look at these other relationships and I'll have issues. James says it this way, or writes it this way. In James chapter 4, he says, what causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from the desires that battle within you? You want something, but you can't have it. You kill and you covet. You don't ask God. And when you do ask God, you ask with the wrong motive so that you may spend it on your lust, your desires. And he said, don't you realize that's not the way to do this? And I focus in on that passage over and over again, and I go, if we're having conflicts and fights with the people around us, one, we're not operating as a peacemaker. And two, it's coming from the desires that battle within us. There's a battle we're losing on the inside, and then it spills over into the outside. And it's affecting our relationships. And the Lord's saying, I want you to be healthy inside. And then it's literally, when you are at peace within yourself, it causes you to be at peace. What does it say? The scripture says this, and I find it ironic because there's a lot of people right now, not that it's anything new, but there's this renewed fervor of having the problem with the homosexual community. And I've been meditating on it and just talking with the Lord about it over and over again. And I said, Lord, there are so many things that are in Scripture that says, Proverbs says, if a man's ways are pleasing to the Lord, he'll make even his enemies live at peace with him. Well, if I make the assumption that somehow the gay and lesbian community is my enemy, quote unquote, they're against me and trying to control me, okay, which some people feel they are. I don't have anybody knocking on my door trying to force me to do a marriage, so I can't say from personal experience. But even if we make the assumption that somehow they're my enemy, if I do what's pleasing to the Lord, I can still live at peace with them. I'm supposed to be, right? A peacemaker. Peacemakers who sow in peace raise a harvest of righteousness. We were talking the other night. We were hanging out.